Like I explained in past videos, the book of Revelation has happened, it just repeats itself. Israel is and was a people set apart. So all the other nations of the world were together because they worship all these gods, and they were together, they were pagan nations. But Israel was set apart. But when we broke covenant, Jah rose up a nation to lead us into captivity. What we know today is colonization. In 2019, that's when I first started to hear from the Spirit from the Ruach. And during one of my studies, one of the first things that the Ruach told me was to look up Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim. The Spaniards were the first of the future European countries to colonize North and South America. They came into the regions predominantly through Cuba and Puerto Rico and into Florida. The Spaniards were committed by the Vatican decree to convert the New World indigenous subjects to Catholicism. I will be coming back to Puerto Rico. This is the island that I was born in. My father insisted that we were all born back home. So my mother would travel to the island, have us, and then come back to the mainland. She did that with all our siblings. Ezekiel 12. Afterwards, the Ruach of Yah carried me back to Babylon, to the Hebrews in exile there. And so ended the vision of my visit to Jerusalem. And I told the exiles everything that Adonai had shown me. Keep people from the history they're easily controlled. First of all, let me start with Constantine. Are you guys familiar with this movie? And I explained this before that the angels are androgynous. That's why they push this so much. So the goal here is to change us from Yah's creation to theirs, to their image. So the strong concord, so number 3 is Abaddon. In other words, the destroyer angel. So this popped up, bull, bull, bull. This sounds like ball. Also in the movie Leave the World Behind, it's highlighted right there, ball. So at the beginning of this movie, this young man found a box that contained the spearhead that pierced Yahushua on the side. You see the crosses above? So this is a symbol that formed on his wrist. You see the circle? You see the cross? This is the Celtic cross, the mark of Cain. And you know that Yahushua sits on the right-hand side of the Father, right? Among the Michigan relics, it showed the Father in the middle. On the right-hand side was Yahushua, and then he said that there was a bad son that sat on the left-hand side. So one good, one bad. In the movie, one of the characters, she goes up to the top of the building. You see the cross? But before she jumps off, she sews her wrist again, right there. Cuts across. Interesting because it happens to be on the left-hand side. I explained this before. The tribe of Dan was the tribe that broke off the tree of life, and they joined the Canaanites. Do you see the cross? And London has the cross and the X because it starts with the cross and it ends with the X. The Alpha, the Omega. I'll explain. And if you're Catholic, you know that you use your right hand to cross yourself. And the pineal gland is the seat of the Creator. So you cross yourself with holy water when you go to service on Sunday for the sun god. And let's not forget Ash Wednesday. All Celtic customs. And there goes Nimrod with his cross. What does righteousness and unrighteousness have in common? After all, the scriptures does say that they will call evil good, good evil. But Yah of our ancestors raised Yahushua, though you had him killed by hanging him on a tree. So Constantine the Empire sees a cross in the sky and adopts Christianity. I am the one that gave them Sunday worship. I changed the Most High Sabbath day to Sunday to honor the God Sol Invictus. You can also thank me for the Christian cross, Christmas, Easter, Trinity, and the name Jesus. I am the God of Christianity. And as for Easter, it's interesting how Easter, that's a pagan holiday by the way, is on March 31st. That follows this year's to April Fool's Day. For the whole world has been fooled. The Council of Nicaea. Christianity was born, responsible for the commencement of a new religion, and the theological creation of Jesus Christ. Constantine's intention at Nicaea was to create an entirely new God for his empire, who would unite all religious factions under one deity. Constantine was the ruling spirit at Nicaea, and he ultimately decided upon the new God for them. So above the British, he ruled that the name of the Druid god Jesus be joined with the Eastern Savior god Krishna, for Christ. And thus we get Jesucristos, right? The official new Roman god. I explained that before, it's not Christ, it's Emmanuel of anything. And we were never Christians, we were Nazarians, the Way, or disciples. The both divinities became one God, following long-standing heathen customs. You could pause to read the rest, but as you can see, this is when they created the God that they gave the world, the Christian God, Jesus Christ. And speaking of Constantine, I told you it is going to repeat again. This time, the double portion, the cup, is going to be given to the heathen nations, the ones that came together to destroy Israel and Judah, because Jah will be gathering his remnants and taking them to Mount Zion, better known as the Second Exodus. Towering Colossus of Constantine reconstructed in Rome. If you haven't figured this out, this is symbolism of what's going to happen because it happens again. This is what we call symbolism. Gematria. Jesus equals a Zeus. In the Vatican, Zeus and his eagle. So you know that the Vatican itself is shaped like a serpent, right? And he usually speaks in this room because he is the mouthpiece of the serpent. He has a serpent head. And those are the ones that gave you the Christian Jesus Christ. Gematria, the Vatican. Central bank digital currencies. Vatican owns all world currency. The anti-gospel, the black sun. IHS. That stands for Isis, Horus, and Seth. This is the serpent coming out of the abyss. These are flames around him. Do you see the side? That's a serpent head. And a serpent is a reptilian. And this is the shedding of the skin. So this is what's behind the white Jesus that gave the world. Who think to make my people forget my name by the dreams that they tell one another, even as their father forgot my name for Baal. This is from the Kabbalah chart. You see the top? These are Celtic gods. This is when you get the name Lord. And we went from Joshua HaMashiach to Jesus Christ. And we went from Yahweh to God. Like I said earlier, we started with a cross and we're going to end with an X, Chi. The X is literally a mark. At the time Ezekiel 9:4 was written, X was the Paleo Hebrew symbol for the letter Tav, or mark. I'm not too sure how to pronounce this, so I'm not going to try. It's a Christian symbol for Christ, written by superimposing the two Greek letters. I believe it's Chi, which is an X, and a P, which are the first two letters in the Greek of the name of Christ. And there goes Saturn, L, and there's his cross. The Aleister Crowley cross, Scientology cross. Back to the tribe of Ephraim. In the reading of Genesis, Jacob blesses Ephraim and Manasseh. So when you do this reading, you will see that the birthright that was given to Joseph is passed on to his son Ephraim. And Ephraim and Manasseh are boys to Joseph. Notice how our flags, when our colonizers colonized us, they mirror each other, right? Just only that the colors are flipped. And we're also known as the Isla del Cordero, the island of the Lamb. It was in 2019 that the Ruach had me look up the tribe of Ephraim, the first thing that I heard from the Spirit. And this is what I came across when I looked it up. This is what started me on my path. 800 ancient stones with Hebrew writing in Puerto Rico authenticated, 2021. The state of Israel has acknowledged a Hebrew presence in our ancient mountains in times long past. And we, the good and noble people, the Taínos, send our warmest regards and blessings to our lost cousins, for we are the long lost ones. Hatai was one of our warriors, the caciques. Before he was burned, a priest asked Chief Hatai if he would accept Christianity and go to heaven. Hatai, thinking a little, asked the religious man if Spaniards went to heaven. The religious man answered yes. The cacique said without further thought that he would not want to go there, but to go to hell. So in other words, he said he'd rather go to hell than go to the so-called Christian heaven among these cruel people. Like I explained earlier, that Spain was commissioned by the Vatican, right? Well, the Vatican is the synagogue of Satan, and they were here to save us. And they joined with the tribe of Dan, England, right? Queen, Antichrist. And all U.S. presidents are related to the King of England. And they're all Masons. George Washington, first Freemason. Down to a very androgynous Statue of Liberty. For you should know right now that this is a light bringer. Those are the sun rays on top of his head, and he holds a torch. And you guys do know that a lot of our children they were taken into Christian institutions or Catholic institutions. In the darkness of a boarding school night, my mother said that she could hear the other kids weeping for their parents. The children were forbidden to speak Lakota by the missionaries, so they spoke the language in their prayers. 1,000 prayers for 1,000 lonely hearts. Gematria Lakota. Bethlehem Sacred Alpha Omega. Hebrew Church Jehovah Raphael Psalms. In Judaism, he is the chief angel who helps with healing, protection, and journeys. Archangel Raphael. The Lamb coming. Looking unto Jesus. Explained in the earlier part of the video how Constantine embroiled the British in creating their new god. He ruled that the name of the Druid god Jesus be joined with the Eastern Savior god Krishna for Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, the Celtic sun god. And this is the Old Bible, the text of the New Testament of Jesus Christ. Jesus died on the cross, a lamb on one side, which signifies his innocence, an elephant on the side, which signifies the sins of the world he came to redeem. The meaning is Jesus. Other churches are no sisters of ours, the Vatican insists. It must be always clear that the one and only Holy Catholic Apostolic Universal Church is not the sister but the mother of all the churches. Isu, the Druid sun god. Isu, also known as Jesus, is a personal name of the Celtic Druid sun savior, closely associated to Jupiter or Zeus. The Druids were the priestly tribe of the Celtic Gaul, the present-day Germany, England, France, and some parts of Scandinavian countries. Jesus was born on December 25th, so the original Bible was written in Paleo-Hebrew script. That's why all our relics in our land are in Paleo-Hebrew. But then later it got translated into Latin. I said Latin America. We're either called Hispanic or Latins, right? So we went from speaking Paleo-Hebrew to the colonizer tongue. At that time, I would change the speech of my returning people to pure Hebrew, so they all could worship Adonai together. Do you know that the term Latin comes to the region in Italy that used to be called Latium? Janos, I covered Janos in the past. That's the god that they serve. Was the first king of Latium and the first pope, better known as Peter. There's so many languages that have Latin roots. I am mostly going to focus on Spain, Portuguese, and French. Latin did not die but evolved into 5 Romance languages: French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Spanish and Portuguese. So Alexander VI published a bull to divide the New World between Spain and Portugal, which he gave the rights to claim these lands to Portugal and Spain. So Spain, Portugal, and France happen to have the highest concentrations of Rh negative blood. You see Basque? This is the Basque area. You see what it tells you up there? Celtic, Merovingian purebloods. The Merovingian kingdom was the French kingdom, and the papal bloodline come from the Merovingian kings. It got cut off, but the chart says Merovingian kings. This is the so-called Holy Grail. You see Mary Magdalene and Jesus, how they ran off to France and they had the Holy Grail, the bloodline of Jesus. Well, that's the papal bloodline. And these are carriers of the Rh negative blood type. It's the highest concentration in those areas. Their Holy Grail. I told you it starts with the cross, but it ends with the X. The olive and the Tav, the mark. The Alpha and the Omega. All roads lead to her X chromosome, the fertility goddess. They have the world's highest frequency of type O or Rh negative blood. Winslers, Queen Elizabeth, shapeshifter. Draco reptilians, Anunnaki, Rh negative blood type. Rh negative. Vatican reptilians. Rh negative blood type, the royal blue bloods. You could pause to read it, and this is the blood type of the royal family. Rh negative blood type. In the scripture, it tells you that Isu was red, right? They're known to have red hair, freckles, blue or green eyes. And some of them are born with tails that they cut off when they're born. And the vast majority of this latter individual happens to reside in Northern Europe. I saw a video one time that a woman explained that the carriers of this blood type, the government are always tracking them, and are the ones that mostly get abducted by so-called aliens. And I came across this headline today. Elder T. Todd Christofferson invites members in Spain to increase faith in Jesus Christ. I hope I got that name right. And speaking of Spain, because Easter is coming up, this is Spain during Holy Week. Can you not see the symbolism? This is the Crusades. And what happened during the Crusades? The blood of the saints. Like I explained, it's going to happen again. The lots are switching. The dragons are switching. So the judgment is being lifted from the house of Israel and is placed onto the heathen nations or the Gentile nations. And I explained how this giant statue of Constantine was reconstructed in Rome, right? This is symbolism of what's to come. And you guys know that the bride represents the church, right? And Yahushua is our bridegroom. And like I explained, that the Merovingian kings were French, the French dynasty. And Paris is known for what? Fashion, right? Paris, capital of fashion. Let me play you this clip I came across.
On a wedding dress, this look from Robert Moon SS Haute Couture 24 is more philosophical than you might think. This dress took more than 1,000 hours, with the wheel alone 842 hours, with thousands of crystals and beads attached to it. Robert explained love as being beautiful, but still extremely painful, hence the blood on the dress. Melancholic, might I add.
Those that don't know history are destined to repeat it. And like I said, the book of Revelation has been done. It just gets done again. And another thing I want to address, I think a lot of us could agree that we are living in the last days. I get so tired of seeing these men saying that women should be quiet in the church. And afterwards, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. So you're missing out on the prophecies that the Ruach is giving to the daughters because you're being stubborn. And I see a lot of these gatekeepers on these apps are men. So keep that in mind. And like I explained, their time is up. They cannot hold us to these contracts anymore because the judgment on Israel has been lifted and the gathering is coming real soon.
This is the last phase of European colonization. And notice that the countries that are most strongly in support of Israel are not just the United States. It's the United States, Australia, and Canada, the offshoots of England, Anglosphere sometimes called, unusual forms of imperialism. These are settler colonial societies, societies in which not like India, not like the British in India, say, societies, South Africa was a little like this, or Algeria under the French, settler colonial societies in which the settlers came in, essentially eliminated the native population, also driven by religious principles, very religious groups driven by Christian Zionism. Those are major cultural factors.
Welcome to Galicia. So I'm walking along this road here. I don't really know where I'm going. All I know is that I need to get to a beautiful beach town, which is around 25 kilometers from here. And it's already like 11 a.m. So hopefully I have enough energy in the tank to get there. So let's go. All right, so it appears I'm on the right track. And as you saw there, 25 kilometers. Wow, this part of Galicia is really different than the places I've been before this. We're going to Land's End to see where the Romans, or the Roman Empire, once thought the world ended, long before Christopher Columbus found a trade route to the west. So we're talking really ancient and mythological times here in European history. I hear some water. Let's go see what's up ahead. Oh, wow, look at this stream, you guys. Man, sometimes when you just walk through these areas, you can just sense that you're centuries and centuries, even thousands of years in the past. I mean, some of these roads and pathways and walls were definitely constructed by the Roman Empire, and even before that. This place was inhabited by Celtic people, actually, and there was pagan culture here. And they believed in witches and spirits. Yeah, you just really get a feeling when you're walking through these forests and old villages, interacting with the locals that still speak their local Galician language, that you're truly walking so far into the past. This is one of the windiest places I've ever been in my life. Behind me is a very mystical church, one that burned in the year 2013 due to a lightning strike, among other environmental factors that are out here, like the dangerous, deadly coast, the Costa del Muerte, where a big oil tanker sank in the year 2002, and that really united the people. And it's ironic because Galicia has always faced a lot of economic hardship, but in that moment, in that time, everybody was able to come together, clean up, and the government, of course, European Union, Madrid, economically supported and funded this cleanup effort that really brought the people together. Well, this isn't just any rock, you guys. This is the remains of what was the boat of the Virgin Mary, who came here to console Santiago, St. James, and bring him back to Jerusalem. Wow. Mythical. Incredible. And sometimes you can't comprehend the history that you walk through when you come to these places in Europe. It's absolutely astounding. Legend also says that this rock was used because it's able to tip back and forth. It was used to determine if people were sentenced to a prison sentence or death, or many other things, who knows.
And the northwestern corner of the Iberian Peninsula has a fascinating history which has many Celtic connections. Galicia and the Iberian Peninsula in general is often cited in origin stories as the region where Celtic tribes sailed from to settle in Ireland and the British Isles. The name of the region comes from the Romans, who referred to the Celtic tribes of the Iberian Northwest as the Calace. Over time, Calace became Galace. Various tribes made up the Galace, including the Colerni and the Bracari. The people of Galace spoke the Galician language, also known as Northwestern Hispano-Celtic and Continental Celtic language. A defining feature of this Celtic civilization was the fact that they lived in hill forts, resulting in them often being referred to as the culture of hill forts or the Castro culture. Today, Galicia is still home to more than 2,000 hill forts. Galicians identified themselves by their hill fort and the king of their area. In relation to their religion, we know that the Galaci worship numerous Celtic gods, including Coventina, the goddess of wells and springs, who was also known as the goddess of abundance and fertility. Navia, the goddess of waters and rivers, with the river Navia in Galicia still bearing her name. And Lugos, the god of prosperity, trade, and craft occupations, who was often depicted as having 3 heads. During the Second Punic War between Carthage and Rome from 218 to 210 BC, we know that some Galatian troops fought alongside the Carthaginian general Hannibal. The various Celtic tribes of the Galaci ruled this corner of the Iberian Peninsula for centuries, until the Roman conquest of Iberia began in the 3rd, 2nd and 1st centuries BC. As well as being interested a large sphere of influence, Rome was also interested in the lucrative gold mines of the region, although I will address the Roman conquest of Iberia in more detail in a future video. In the 5th and 6th centuries AD, there was another Celtic infusion into Galicia, as the Anglo-Saxons settled what would become England. Many Celtic Britons fled to Galicia, as well as to what would become Brittany and France. This settlement in Galicia was known as Britannia. It is thought that these Britons practiced a strong Christian faith. It is curious that the common Brittonic Celtic language of these Britons did not seem to take hold in Galicia, yet it did take hold in nearby Brittany in France, which is why the Celtic language of Breton is still spoken in Brittany today. Perhaps these migrants from Britain were better assimilated into the Galician culture of the time than their fellow migrants in Brittany, with Galicia controlled by the Germanic tribe of the Suebi at this time, and then the Visigoths. Celtic influence is still present in Galicia today, however, particularly in music. A traditional instrument in Galicia is called the gate, a type of bagpipe. The gate was known to be used as far back as the 9th century AD and is still used today. The two main languages spoken in Galicia today are Galician or Gallego and Spanish. Galician is an Indo-European language of the Western Ibero-Romance branch and is spoken by more than 2 million people, mainly in Galicia. The Galician language is closely related to Portuguese, as both languages evolved from Vulgar Latin and for a time in the 13th century formed the Galician Portuguese language before splitting into separate but related languages. Galician also contains some Germanic, Celtic, Spanish and Andalusian Arabic influences. The Romance nature of the Galician language is a result of the Roman conquest of the region over 2,000 years ago. Today, Galicia is an autonomous community of Spain and is home to around 2.7 million people.
La tierra que abraza con amor, con orgullo y con honor la tradición celta. Aquí nací y ahora vuelvo a ti, a tus bosques, a tus ríos, a tus mares infinitos. Eres única, tan real como leyenda. Estoy aquí abrazando tu espíritu, honrando mi raíz